Her tiny pawprints were smeared all over the foggy window, like she was trying to send a message, one no one could read. That's what stopped me in my tracks. It was over 100 degrees outside, and there she was, locked in a silent car under the burning Arizona sun. No shade, no breeze, just a little German Shepherd puppy, barely moving, pressed against the glass like she'd already given up. What would you do if you saw that, if you knew there was barely any time left? Stay with me, because what happened next will break your heart, and maybe piece it back together. I'm Rick, and this is the moment Scarlett changed everything. The afternoon sun in Scottsdale was unrelenting, the kind of heat that makes the air shimmer and dust swirl in slow, hypnotic spirals. It was just past noon, the kind of time when nothing alive should dare linger outside. The strip mall was nearly empty, shops with faded signs, silent parking lot, and the distant hum of an air conditioner somewhere down the street. It was the kind of baked stillness that usually wipes the smell of hope from the world. But then I saw a sedan, parked crooked, windows up, sealed shut against the world, and something about it stopped me. No engine hum, no fan noise, nothing except the glaring sunlight. I took a step closer, boots cracking on the asphalt, and there it was, a flicker, a tiny movement in the back seat. My heartbeat sped up. I thought I'd imagined it at first, just a heat mirage or dust shifting, but I wasn't wrong. Pressed against the glass was a small, trembling shape. A puppy, 4 months old, a German Shepherd, with black and tan fur soaked in sweat. Her chest rose and fell so fast it was as if each breath might be her last. She looked so tiny, swallowed whole by the car's interior, and still her eyes found me. She pressed her little paws flat against the window, leaving dozens of prints, dozens, like she'd been hoping someone would see them and know she was trapped. I swallowed hard. "Holy," I whispered, catching myself before my voice got rough. I'm Rick, a mechanic, 41, seen engines explode, tires shred at 80 miles an hour, people crawl out of wrecks alive. But I'd never seen anything like this. My stomach dropped like I'd plummeted off a cliff. There was no bark, no whine, just silence and heat and little pawprints pleading for mercy. I looked that way and this, trying to find someone else, another person, another pair of eyes. But there was nobody, no open store, no parked car with someone inside. Just me, that puppy, and time slipping fast. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Dialed 911. My voice quivered as I gave them the plate number, the street name, the situation. Locked car, puppy inside. It's scorching hot. They told me help was on the way. Of that I wasn't sure. Minutes in that sun felt like minutes in hell. I dropped to my knees by the passenger side, leaning my forehead against the metal, so hot it burned through my shirt, whispered through the glass, "Hold on, sweetheart. Help's coming." She pressed her forehead back, eyes closed. I didn't know her name then, but I felt it, Scarlett. She was fading, but still fighting. I leaned back just enough to see her chest, still moving, just barely, but moving. Inside car panting, bounced off the glass like a metronome, my heart pounding to catch up. It was 97 degrees outside. Inside it had to be at least 120. The steering wheel was warping, the dashboard softening. I felt like I could watch her life melt away before my eyes. I looked around. My palms burned where they touched the car. I caught sight of my wrench in the truck bed and thought about smashing the window. But what if I hit her? What if the broken glass hurt her more than the heat? I pressed my forehead back against the car, whispering nonsense, stories of my 2 kids, of a cold bowl of water waiting at home, of any kind of comfort I could conjure. "Stay with me, baby," I told her. She shivered, ear flicking ever so slightly, and opened her eyelids enough to focus on me. That gave me just a flicker of hope. And then I heard it. Sirens. Faint at first, then growing louder. I stood up and waved like crazy, one arm high like a flag on a burning ship. Every second felt like an hour, every heartbeat a lifetime. When the fire truck pulled in, I shouted, "Puppy in the back seat." 2 firefighters jumped out, tools ready. One had a wedge, the other gloves and a thermal scanner. They didn't waste a second. They slid the tool into the door frame. My heart thudded so loud I thought they must hear it too. "She's dehydrated." "Breathing shallow," I heard them say. I couldn't bear to watch anymore. Then I heard the click, the pop. The door unlocked. They swung it open slow, like they were opening a tomb. A blast of scalding air poured out. The puppy was there, curled in the corner, paws stiff, body limp, her fur scorched in places. For a moment she was so still I thought she wasn't real. Then I heard, "I've got her." One firefighter scooped her up in gloved hands and passed her to me. Her head fell against my chest. Her breath was barely a whisper, her body burnt hot, but she was alive. In that moment, my whole world narrowed down to her, small, breathing, beating against my heartbeat. They said she needed oxygen, fluids, a vet, emergency intake at Maricopa County Animal Care and Control. I got in the rescue vehicle with them, holding Scarlett close, her fur still radiating heat, her eyes half open, tremors racking her body. "You're okay now, sweetheart. I've got you," I whispered, not because I knew she heard me, but because I needed to believe it. The air inside was cool, but my arms were wet with sweat. I felt every shake of her ribs move through me. We raced down the street. I don't remember red lights. I just remember her whisper of a whimper, like she'd found comfort in my arms. At the shelter, they took her gently, cooling towels, fluids, IVs. I watched them roll her into the exam room, and as she disappeared, she turned her head and looked back at me. That's when they named her, Scarlett. One of the techs said, "She's got fire in her. She's still fighting." I nodded. That name fit. The heat, the silence, the way she never stopped trying, even when she had no reason to believe someone'd come. We dashed into the rescue vehicle, lights pulsing around us, and I climbed in with her while they closed the door. She was limp in my arms, trembling, half-conscious. Her fur still radiated heat, and her body was hotter than any of the pavement I'd ever felt. "You're okay," I kept repeating, pressing her to my chest, as though sheer words could fill her lungs with oxygen. She was breathing, but so shallow I almost couldn't tell. My fingers traced her ribs, hoping to feel that steady heartbeat. Behind us, the sirens faded. Ahead, the shelter loomed. Inside the rescue unit, the air felt cold but too clinical compared to the closeness between us. I felt like I was floating, just me and Scarlett, sliding through dark streets toward whatever would come next. Every bump made her jitter, and I shifted to hold her softer, tighter. Our shared breathing was the only sound, a quiet promise. When we arrived, shelter staff sprang into action. 2 techs grabbed her from my arms and led her inside under cool towels, 4 lines, oxygen masks, quiet words. I followed until they told me to wait, then stood by the observation window and watched her being tended to. My legs shook harder than the little dog. They rolled her behind a curtain and I couldn't see her, just heard the soft hiss of machines and muted conversation. And then a nurse stepped out. "She's stable," she said, breathing steadily. Still weak, but she held on. Relief crashed through me, a wave I didn't know I'd been holding back. But even as I tried to let out a breath, I felt something tighten in my chest, a whisper of fear. This wasn't over, not by far. Over the next hours, I hovered in the waiting area. Staff came and went. I heard phrases I hoped to never hear. Core body temperature, shock, saturation levels. I sat so still I'm sure I faded into the chair. And every time a staff member passed behind the curtain, I found myself holding my breath. Cliffhanger moment hit hard when one nurse paused and said, "There's one more thing we need to watch." Suddenly I realized this wasn't just a rescue. It was a fight. Scarlett had survived the furnace, but now she had to beat what came next. I thought about that locked car, the heat, how she never barked, never cried, just waited. Was she broken or stronger than I could see? In those tense hours, I learned her wounds ran deeper than burned fur. According to one vet, electric shocks from intense heat can shut down organs slowly. That explained why her paws were raw, her insides scorching from the inside. I remembered the dozen paw prints on the window, each one a desperate plea, each one a sign she hadn't given up. Even now, I realized she hadn't finished fighting. I whispered to her through the curtain, "You're safe, I'm here," hoping she could pick my voice out of the clinical hum. Somewhere beyond the sheets I felt her stir, a tiny twitch. My eyes filled as I watched the curtain rustle. She lifted her head, then flinched away. Small, but it was enough. And when she looked at me, just for a second, I saw fire behind her eyes. The fight wasn't gone, but the real danger was still ahead. Her body needed more than fluids. Her spirit needed healing. I sat beside her kennel later that evening, with a cold blanket draped over my legs, trying to hold steady. I talked to her about my kids, about my garage, how her little bowl of water waited at home with her name labeled on it. She didn't respond until she sniffed the air, and for a heartbeat our eyes connected again. She licked my hand once, softly, as though to say, "I'm still here." The room was dim, but that moment felt bright. That's when I realized it wasn't just physical recovery she'd need. It was trust, routine, and someone she could lean on when every other door had stayed shut. Slowly, the shelter staff moved her to a quieter recovery wing, where each morning she'd try to take a step, wobble, then rest. She started eating little bits, and though she laid low, she never tried to run away. She would simply wait. By the time the day ended, I sat beside her again, reading old mechanic logs out loud because silence felt too big. She pressed closer, head resting on my knee, a small reminder that if I stayed, she would too. And through that long tension filled every beat, the rescue, the machines, the waiting, the tiny moves, built to a single truth. Scarlett had survived the furnace, but her greatest test was the next breath, the next heartbeat. The next moment she chose to hope again. That's the real fight, and why you can't skip what comes next. When morning light filtered through the shelter windows, Scarlett was already awake. She lay on a soft fleece blanket under a gentle lamp, her small IV line still taped to her paw. As soon as I walked in, she lifted her head, ears twitching with recognition. That moment filled me with relief, and something deeper. Her eyes, once dull and distant, now looked toward me. She sniffed my outstretched hand, nudging it gently as if to say, "I remember you." It was a quiet gesture, but in it lay the journey so far. The locked car, the scorching heat, the rescue, and the long night that followed. She lapped a bit of water slowly but firmly, and rested her chin on my hand. Watching her drink, I felt the tension of the past days ease. It was the first time hope felt real. Over the next hours, shelter staff checked her vitals, gently brushed her fur, and offered her soft food. She ate a little more with each bite, growing calmer. I stayed by her side, whispering stories about my garage, my kids, the backyard bowl of water I'd told her about. I watched as her chest rose with each breath, steady, stronger. Near noon, a volunteer brought me outside and said quietly, "When you're ready, we can move her to a quieter recovery room." I nodded, surprisingly calm. Together, we carried her into the recovery wing, a room with a glass wall facing a slow hallway. I helped settle her into a kennel and draped a light blanket over her shoulders. She didn't try to run or hide. She simply lay there, as if trusting it was okay to relax, as long as I stayed nearby. That afternoon, she took 3 shaky steps, paused, then lay down. Her paws were tender, still healing. I sat on a chair beside her, reading aloud from a collection of old stories. She listened. Sometimes she closed her eyes, other times she followed my voice. I didn't speak much, but when I did, it was simple. "You're safe now," I'd say. And she'd sigh, a small, content breath that felt like progress. A volunteer came and placed cards and drawings from strangers on a low shelf near her kennel. Pictures of puppies running free, children's messages, "You're not alone, we're rooting for you, be brave." Scarlett looked at them now and then, ears perking. When I reached down to scratch behind her ears, she leaned into my hand. It was a strong moment, not grand, but real, and one that told me she wasn't just healing physically, her heart was opening again. By the next morning, her legs were steadier. She ate more, drank more, and even nudged a toy toward me. When I spoke, she wagged her tail, just a little, but it meant the world. The shelter director came to me. "Rick," she said with a soft smile, "Scarlett's doing beautifully. We can begin adoption steps, if you're interested." My throat clenched. Without thinking, I replied, "She's not ready yet. Neither am I." My voice broke and I looked away. That's when I realized the truth. Scarlett had chosen me from the moment I found her. Now she was choosing to trust again, and I was choosing her. A few days later, I agreed to a private meet and greet with a family who'd asked about her. They drove over 200 miles and arrived with hopeful faces and puppy treats. But when Scarlett came out into the yard, she sniffed the air and walked straight to me. She sat by my leg, leaning in, tail held low but steady. The family smiled gently and said, "We understand." I managed a small laugh. It felt strange to have to explain that sometimes the heart picks before the plan does. After they left, Scarlett curled beside me under a shady tree. I scooped her into my lap and whispered, "You have a voice louder than any plan." That night, I lay awake thinking of everything. I hadn't planned on a dog again. My life was settled, quiet. But I thought back to the day I saved her, our tiny paws pressed on glass. begging someone to notice, and I realized how blind I'd been to needing something that chose me back. The adoption counselor called me the next morning and slid a folder across the table. My name was already printed as the new owner. Scarlett lay curled at my feet, head up, watching me. When I signed the papers, she stood, stepped forward, and placed her paw on the table near mine. It was like she was saying, "I'm ready." I signed, and silent tears fell down my cheeks. The staff quietly applauded, handed me a little bag with her medical records, a red collar with a silver heart tag, and offered tissues. "Welcome home, Scarlett," I whispered. Her tail wagged, not fast but steady, like she knew what the words meant. Walking out, leash loose, she stayed right beside me. In the pickup truck seat, she curled up and let out the longest, deepest sigh I've ever heard. It wasn't just fatigue, it was the sound of relief, of peace, of release. As we drove home, I rested my hand on the seat beside her, close enough that she could lean in. No music, just our breathing, our quiet together. That night, she curled up by my bed, breathing slow and even while I slept. From then on, morning meant her cold nose nudging me awake, her tail thumping at the garage door, ready to greet the day. My day. Clients at the shop ask if she's the viral puppy. When I say yes, a few kneel down and whisper, "You've got a miracle." And they're right. 3 months later, she's strong, playful, almost fearless. Yet sometimes she pauses at a window, not in fear, but in recognition, like a reminder we made it through fire together. And every night, when she curls beside me, I reach down and stroke her fur, thinking, "You saved me too." Her journey from a locked car in 120 degrees to a warm home shows how powerful love in action can be, even small acts. She taught me that being seen, being heard, being chosen again, it changes everything. Scarlett wasn't just rescued, she rescued me. If her story touched you, share it. That one share could be the spark someone needs to reach out and save another silent life. Thanks for watching, and if you want more stories full of heart, hit subscribe, because behind every closed door, there could be a life waiting to be found.